Lawn Solutions Australia is bringing the world's leading turf varieties to both your local golf course and home lawn. With superior turf varieties like Tiff Tough Hybrid Bermuda, Sir Grange Zoysia and the newly launched Zoysia Australis, available exclusively through Lawn Solutions Australia, we have the perfect lawn for you. For more information or to find your local accredited supplier, visit lawnsolutionsaustralia.com.au. That's lawnsolutionsaustralia.com.au. Hello and welcome to episode 128 of The Thing About Golf, the Golf Australia magazine podcast series, trying to figure out just what is it that makes so many so passionate about this game. Rod Murray's my name, but we are not interested in me this week. It's my colleague John Huggan who's joining me from his home in Scotland to chat about this episode, because there wouldn't be too many people listening to this, Huggy, I suspect, who haven't heard the voice of our guest. Tell the listener, welcome firstly, and tell the listeners, who have you been chatting to and what have you been chatting about?
Well, this time round, we got a hold of Jim Nantz, of all people, the long-time CBS commentator on golf, amongst other things, in America. And you're right, even if you've only listened to a Titleist ad on television, that's Jim's voice on there as well. He's everywhere. Yeah.
If you had to draw up a life to live, Huggy, Nantz would be in the top 5, wouldn't he, of ones that you might choose? For those outside of America, he's also Mr. Football, isn't he, on CBS? He's an enormous celebrity through his football commentary.
That's right. I mean, and you're right. I mean, this is the life that he chose from a very early age. I mean, Jim Nantz has only ever had one ambition in life, and that was to be a commentator on sports on television, especially on golf and especially on the Masters, which he's hosted for, a number of years now. And he wants to make it to 50, apparently, 50 Masters before he drifts off into the sunset.
There are some people, Huggy, I think of Peter Allis, I think, in this way, in many ways, and Nantz is the same. Tournament golf isn't the same without that voice, is it? They go together like tea and milk.
Yeah, and he's looked upon as the kind of doyen now. I think he's getting to that age of commentators. He just has a uncanny ability to say exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment, which is, I think if you start thinking about that, you wouldn't be as good. I think you've got to do it without thinking. That would be my view, but not that I know much about broadcasting, but whatever it is that makes you good, Jim does it.
It's like a gift, isn't it, Huggy? People underrate the gift. Everybody watches television. I'm sure you've been as guilty of it as I have, criticising the commentators. Why would you say that? Why didn't you notice that? Why didn't you point it out? It's you and I have done a bit of radio at the Australian Open. It's nowhere near as easy as they make it look, is it?
Well, I was really good at it. I don't sure about you, but
you saw how I was struggling, Huggy. Thank you for helping me out.
Yeah, it's a tough gig. I mean, it's very different. From journalism, broadcasting and journalism are two very different things.
Well, they're unrelated industries, aren't they? in so many ways, in all of that. He must have some fabulous stories to tell, Huggy, and I'm sure some aren't for when the microphones are on. But as a storyteller, he's a great broadcaster. He's a good storyteller.
He is. He's very careful. He's not as indiscreet as you and I would be, perhaps even off the air.
That's why he's Jim Nantz, Huggy, and we are not, and never will be.
Maybe so. That's part of it. But I mean, I've always liked him. He and I go back quite a long way. When I lived in Connecticut, when I was at Golf Digest in the States, he lived in Connecticut as well. We played a bit of golf together, and he did a very nice thing for me way back in the day. He got me tickets for the Dave Letterman show in New York for the then Mrs. Huggan, and I went to see Dave Letterman show on her birthday, which was, you couldn't get tickets for the Dave Letterman show unless you were Jim Nantz.
I was going to say, to get them from Jim Nantz makes it all the more special. Who was on, and was it as good as you were hoping?
Excuse me, it was Chuck Berry.
Wow.
Mary Tyler Moore, and a woman whose name escapes me, but she was on the West Wing. I can't remember what her name is now, but it was very good. And my lasting impression of that evening is how cold it was in the studio. It was absolutely freezing for reasons unknown, but it was a terrific night out.
I wonder if only a Scotsman walks out of Letterman and says, cold in there, you know.
It was Baltic.
It would have been one of the tickets of the decade, I would have thought, back at the time. Letterman was as big as events get, wasn't it? If you get in the studio.
I mean, it was an impossible ticket, and there's no way I could have done that without Jim's help.
Well, he's clearly authentically personable, as that story tells, and he certainly comes across that way in the interview. I haven't listened to the whole thing, clearly, but I've had to listen to the first 15 minutes or so, and I'm already well and truly drawn in. Thanks for doing it for us, Huggy, and I hope you enjoyed Jim Nantz, and I hope the listeners do too.
My pleasure. Okay, welcome to the latest edition of the Thing About Golf podcast. I often say this on here, that this is a voice that's going to be familiar to golf fans, but I think it's doubly true this time. I think that there won't be a golf fan on the planet that hasn't heard this voice. So, Jim Nantz, what was and is the thing about golf for you?
Well, good morning, Huggy. It's great to be connected with you halfway around the world. What is the thing about golf for me? Man, it runs through these veins. It's in my heart. It is such an essential part of my life. I one time said, I need golf like I need oxygen. That's all I can say. I don't know anything else about it. And I'm not just talking about playing golf. I'm not talking about broadcasting golf. I'm just talking about being around the game, observing, watching it, feeling it. You know, I have a home in Pebble Beach, California, and I didn't move there because of the tennis. I moved there to be around other people that love the game and feel that vibe that golf brings us in all facets of it, beyond just being out there on the turf playing it. So I'm grateful to have it in my life. I was raised in North Carolina, which is a big part of our country's golf culture. And I think it was just instilled in me at an early age by my parents that, you know, golf was important to them. So alas, it became important to me.
Is that where it came from your parents?
Oh, yeah. My folks, one of my earliest childhood memories was them being charter members, founding members at a course in the country outside of Charlotte called Pine Lake Country Club. And that original core group, I couldn't tell you how many founders there were, but they actually had to help the process of clearing the land to build and construct a 9-hole golf course. So that first memory is of them pushing a wheelbarrow up the first hole, which was a slight dogleg right, pushing a wheelbarrow and picking up rocks and sticks, putting them in the wheelbarrow and pushing them up the hill toward the green. No, there's no grass. It's just dirt. There's no topsoil or anything on it. And by the way, it's a whole line 50 yards across of other families pushing a wheelbarrow and a wagon and dumping in some of the rubbish that was going to make it difficult to be able to do the next part of the process of building that fairway. And it was that organic. It was important to them. I was tagging along and doing my little part as a 3 or 4 year old and didn't realize at the time, but I was being hooked on the game.
Yeah. How good were you young? I mean, I've seen you play later on, so I would think we'll get to the university. Get to the University of Houston days. I mean, it must have become quite clear to you early on that you weren't as good as Blaine McAllister or Fred Couples. But how good were you as a teenager?
My teenage years, I was a decent golfer. I played in a lot of junior events. I worked at a golf club that gave me access. I've been told before, as if somebody is trying to demean me by saying, "Oh, you grew up in a country club," and you. No, let me set the record straight. I cleaned clubs after rounds. I picked up the driving range with scoopers. I charged the golf carts. I ran bags out to the parking lot and put them in the trunk of cars and picked up bags on the way in. I did work that you would expect a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old would do to enable that young person to be able to have access to play golf at the end of the day when the course was cleared and to go out, maybe a little fatigued, but go out and walk 9 holes and work on my own game. So I played other sports too when I was in grade school and in high school. It wasn't just golf, but golf was the real love. And did I win some tournaments? Yeah, I did. Nothing. I'm not talking U.S. juniors. I'm not talking about a state junior, but I won a lot of regional and district tournaments and high school tournaments, and played as the number one player on my high school team from freshman on. And we played match play, by the way, in high school.
Perfect.
Probably wasn't, now that I look back on it, probably wasn't a great thing. I mean, I love match play, but, I didn't learn how to shoot a score as much as I should have, because we didn't play metal. But,
you should have been born in Scotland. You should have been born in Scotland.
I would have liked that, by the way.
I think you might have fitted in all right. I think, yeah.
But golf. I should clarify this. Even when I went to Houston and masqueraded as a member of the golf team for the legendary coach Dave Williams, and walked on at his behest, at his invitation to be on the Houston golf team, to be a professional golfer was not only out of the question, it was never a goal. Never. My goal since I was 11 years old. It's going to sound like good copy here, Huggy, but it's true. My goal was to work for CBS Sports. Right. CBS broadcast the Masters tournament. They broadcast the PGA Tour on a regular basis. I love their voices. I love their chemistry, the style that they approach the broadcast. And I identified with them and thought, I want to be that voice one day. I want to be one of them. And when I went to Houston, I got to live and breathe and be a part of the golf team and letter. But the goal even then in school was to figure out a path that would take me to CBS, for them to one day find me and bring me on board and complete this little idea that was circling around in my head. It was just up to them to figure out a way to find me.
Yeah.
That's
so
what
there
I was.
There was no sense of disappointment then when you discovered that there was guys in the same dorm or room, wherever you were, flat apartment, that were miles better than you were at golf.
No, not disappointment. I love my teammates and my roommates, and it wasn't a competitive thing. First off, it wasn't competitive with them. Did I play with them? Yeah, almost on a daily basis. We came in as incoming freshmen together. You mentioned them already: Blaine, Freddie, John Horn, who lived in the room with us and was a 2-year player on the American PGA Tour. Man, I love those guys and still do. Well, we still are a band of brothers. And on August the 29th, just a few days ago, that marked the anniversary of when we first met, when Coach brought us in for like a freshman orientation in 1977, 47 years ago. I met that day walking into that room when you had to stand up and introduce yourself. I met lifelong friends, lifelong brothers, and it's one of the great gifts of my life. And I tried all I could to prop them up, put them on my shoulders, and let them know that I believed in their goals. They all wanted to play the PGA Tour, and they all did. Freddie wanted to win the Masters. That was his goal, and he did that. And they knew my goal from day one was to work for CBS, and they made me feel like that was going to happen. That was plausible. We're just kids with a dream, and maybe at that time you don't realize what the odds are, this or that, but the passion, man, the ambers were stoked by my teammates and burning and taking me to a whole new level of passion for this.
Now, I'm intrigued a little bit, Jim, by what you say there. Why CBS and not ABC or NBC?
Well, at the time when I was in college, ABC had 3 of the 4 majors. They had everything but the Masters. And I did love ABC. And make no mistake about it, Jim McKay, Jack Whitaker, Chris Schenkel, Keith Jackson, Frank Gifford, their primary play-by-play voices, they were giants to me. But it just, there was something about the Masters tournament that resonated with me more than the other 3 majors. And And I maybe it was the way Frank Cherkinian, who was this legendary producer director of CBS Golf. Some call him over here the father of golf television. There's something about the way that he presented his broadcast that was very relatable to me. And I wanted to be a part of it. Of course, as time moves on, shortly after I began at CBS, I got hired in 85. By 91, we had added the PGA, and now we had 2 of the 4. And that's where we still are at the moment. And NBC now has the other 2. And ABC Golf is now ESPN over here. So things have changed. The landscape changes. But CBS still, mercifully, thankfully, blessedly, still has that incredible relationship with the Augusta National Golf Club. And grateful for that we have this beautiful partnership that has gone on for generations.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk to you a bit about the Masters, obviously, but before we leave Houston, I was hoping that, unlike me, who I wouldn't be too keen to share too many stories from my student days, but is there something that you can tell us about what went on behind the scenes a little bit?
I know, but it's been a while, but I've been asked this question. People want to know what kind of hijinks we were up to.
Exactly.
We were goal-minded kids. I mean, we really, truly were all in on trying to achieve our goals. I know some golfers in their youth can get a little wild and crazy, crazier maybe than people think, but we didn't do anything. I mean, it was boring with a capital B. We hit golf balls down the hallway of our dormitory and knocked out windows that you had to pay a fee to the school to replace them. But that's about it. There was no wild, crazy drinking. I remember we actually Coach would not let us join a fraternity. He felt like the golf team was a fraternity and that we were a cut above. We weren't going to be like those other guys on campus creating chaos and all that. You guys stand above them. I remember going to one party that was outside of our golf team in my 4 years in school. And of course, we all went together. And it was a frat party, and there were sorority girls there and all this and that. And we got over there. It was a night when Muhammad Ali was fighting Leon Spinks. And back in those days, it wasn't on pay-per-view. These fights were actually on free television. And we went over to the party and like, hey, you guys have a TV here? Everybody else is standing by a keg and drinking and trying to connect with a sorority girl or whatever. The golf geeks walk in, and all we want to do is we want to see the fight. We were there for about an hour, and I mean, the fight. We wanted to see the preamble to the fight and all that. And finally, one of us said, "Let's get out of here. This isn't any fun at all. Let's go back to our room so we can go watch the fight." That was it,
okay.
Huggy. That's the hijinks you're up to.
I'm terribly disappointed. I was kind of hoping you were going to ruin your image there, but obviously not. It's not going to happen.
There's nothing there. Anyway, I can't even manufacture
it. As you moved along, obviously in your business, I'm imagining you started as a kind of all-round sports. You'd be doing a bit of everything, but how was golf always the aim? I mean, I know you're involved, you've been in the basketball and you're still doing the NFL, but was golf always the number one aim for you in the midst of all that?
It was. Listen, I loved the other 2 sports too. College basketball here in the States, we call it the Final Four when we get down to the end. I got to call that for 32 years. And the record before that, as far as play-by-play, I'm calling the championship in the Final Four, was 6. Brent Musburger and Dick Enberg each had called 6. They were the record holders. I came in and got to do it 32 times. I gave that up in the spring of 23. I had to get a little time back after all these years. Parenthetically, I'm starting my 40th year with CBS this week. Begins the 40th time of going through a lot of the same places. But the NFL was always something that I loved and was an avid follower of that too. But deep down, I wanted to be a golf announcer. And I mentioned Frank Cherkinian. Frank, in one of my first meetings with him, said he was tough. Now he tough loved me. He's in the World
Sounds
Golf
familiar.
Hall of Fame. You Huggy, you knew Frank.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But he said, son, I've never had anybody come to me before who wants golf to be his primary sport. I always got these guys that came over and they filled time in the off season. They were damn good. And I'm going to try to make you as good as them. If not, I'll try to make you even better. But I got Summerall as a football guy, and I got Scully, who was a baseball guy, and I have Whitaker, who loved horse racing and track and field. He said, you come to me and you're golf. You're all about golf. And I'm going to do everything I can to make you presentable out here and be somebody that's good enough to be on this team. I said, well, sir, I'm all in. How do I go about doing that? Just shut up and listen to me, son. All right. When you step out of line, I'll let you know. Well, he let me know quite often. And he took great delight in embarrassing and shaming me down in front of all. It was done out of love. I know today people, when somebody's prickly like that, they run to HR and say, this guy talked harshly to me. I knew Frank was doing it out of love, tough loving me. And I'm grateful. I carry Frank to the booth with me. He's been gone a long time now. Died in 2011. I miss him like crazy, but I feel his presence every time I put the headset on.
So is there a Jim Nantz blooper reel out there somewhere that we can watch?
Listen, it changes on a weekly basis, my man. There's always things that you would like to have back, things you could have phrased more poetically, more succinctly, whatever the case might be. But it's live. And once those words leave your lips and hit that satellite up in orbit, they're back down in someone's living room a half a second later. You can't reel them back. Hey, satellite dish, bring that back. Don't send that out. It's gone. Yeah. It's gone. Well, so what happens is, you have things that, you could say are bloopers or misphrased, or there are other things that have happened too, like, I'll give you a good one.
Go for it.
Pebble Beach. The old Crosby, as I still like to call it, the Crosby of Clint Eastwood has had a towering presence with that tournament for now going on 60 years. And oftentimes Clint comes up in the tower and is there to represent the link to the past with Bing. He's the honorary chairman of the Monterey Peninsula Golf Foundation and calls a little golf, adds a little flavor and color to the broadcast. One year, years ago, Davis Love was on his way to winning the tournament. Davis was and remains a very dear friend of mine. I knew Davis without having all this stuff I carry cataloged in my head. I knew him well enough to know that he was a big Clint Eastwood fan. Davis shoots like 63, 4 or 5 to win the tournament about an hour before the last group comes in. Clint's up in the booth and he wants to leave the booth a little bit early to go down and be ready to give the trophy away. So they put us on camera. And I said to Clint on camera, I said, Clint, before you go down to the 18th green to give Davis the trophy, I think you should know that Davis Love is a huge Clint Eastwood fan. Oh, that's nice. I said, as a matter of fact, the first adult film he ever saw in his life, you starred in it. All of a sudden, I felt the temperature in the booth drop about 20 degrees. I didn't know what I had said. And Clint looks at me and said, I never made an adult film in my life. I said, no, I meant first grown-up film he ever saw in his life. You starred in it. And it made for a very funny moment and a blooper moment on TV. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've got a reputation for saying the right thing at the right time. So I'm glad that you're not perfect. So.
Trust me, it's my batting average is well under 50%.
Yeah. Now? Tell me what is the difference, or is there a difference between your job when you're doing golf compared to the other sports that you've done? Is golf different?
Oh, to me, it's stylistically, it couldn't be more different than say the NFL, which our season's about to commence. And I will have this coming week a game in Los Angeles with the Chargers and the Raiders. And I go through nothing but paperwork, printed out materials that are FedEx to me every day. And I can go on the computer too and look at stats and information. And I put a chart and a board together that's color coded, not because I'm reading the game as it's happening. It's a spotting board. So a second set of eyes can let me know that this guy's come in at safety. The third receiver is in the slot over here. So he's constantly pointing. That's Tommy Spencer, who I think you know, been with me for 30 something years, invaluable part of my career and everything I do. So you work all week on kind of prepping it, and then the game happens, and you have this as a backup piece, so to speak. During commercial breaks, you can say, "Oh, you know what? I haven't told this story yet on Jim Harbaugh, the new coach of the chart. I want to get to that. That hasn't happened yet. Now, golf, Tommy is there too. We'll discuss before the broadcast. What is it about Bobby Mack? What is it about Robert McIntyre it's going to make this a special day for him, like it was this year at the Genesis Scottish Open?" And a lot of that's in my head. Or I'm down on the practice facility talking to players and trying to glean a last second nugget or two. But when that broadcast comes on golf, I basically have nothing in front of me. I call it from right here. If my heart feels it, if something springs to mind, it's a feel sport for me as a broadcaster. Have to feel it. Have to feel the energy. The words have to be just right. Usually very minimalistic, because you want the sounds of everything else bleeding in. And I love that challenge. I think it actually is a greater challenge as far as someone that's in the word industry. I think it's a greater challenge than the football is.
Yeah, I'm so reassured by what you've just said, because I don't want to hear a list of stats from you. I can get that from anybody. I think, and in my business and in the game itself, I think the game itself is at its best. I've said this on many of these podcasts. The game itself is at its best when it's an art and not a science. And you just kind of backed that up for me.
Well, I think in our industry, we have to be artists. Now, I really despise numbers. Sometimes in football, I need to present them. He's just rushed for over 100 yards. That's his fourth touchdown pass of the game, which, put it in context, that's the first time he's done that in his career, whatever. So the numbers do come in. Very occasionally they do in the golf commentary, but seldom, because the numbers are on the screen. In fact, there's a lot of numbers being churned out. Ball speed, height, arc, boom, this and that. How far did it carry? I want it to be far more poetic than that.
Want to work less and play more golf? Well, you can. If you're practicing your putting or your drives, Tiff Tough Hybrid Bermuda, exclusively by Lawn Solutions Australia, can bring the golf course experience right to your home. With superior drought tolerance, speedy recovery and toughness, Tiff Tough is the smart grass. For more information, visit lawnsolutionsaustralia.com.au. That's lawnsolutionsaustralia.com.au.
I like the way you said that, by the way, Huggy. You talked about you think golf should be more art than it is science. The truth is, and I've had a lot of chats about this through the years, that the golfers, now we were talking about broadcasters, and I believe it should be art, but for the golfers, there are two kinds of players. There are artists and there are scientists. And we could rattle down off the list of the top players in the game right now, and you can say, what do you think? Like Bryson DeChambeau, scientists. You think about that. Rory, artist. So it's interesting to, even for people sometimes, go back and say how it applies to them. How do they see themselves? And I played this week, played miserably. I don't play often enough. My game it doesn't live up to what people think it's going to be because they know the backstory that I played with these great players at Houston and all that.
Yeah.
My index now is like approaching an 11 index. And I think I have been stuck in a scientist mode for too long. And Casey Reamer, great friend of mine, the head pro at Cypress Point Club, he got me on the range for a lesson this week, and he showed me some things that were on the artistic side.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball. My game suddenly rose to a level I hadn't seen in a long time. And it felt really good. I can't wait to maybe go out and hit the range later today and see if it's a flick of a second or for real.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that as well, because I think, and I bang on about this, and I get accused of being the old fuddy-duddy, but I think we're going too far down the scientific route, especially at the elite level. And I get why they do it, because they're trying to maximize everything at that, to win. But yeah. I do think that, and I use this line a lot, that if nobody at the top level now plays like Lee Trevino or Seve Ballesteros, how can it be better than it was? I mean, these guys, and then the tragedy is that these guys they've clearly got the talent to play like the old guys did, but they don't have to. The equipment doesn't let them, the ball doesn't let them. They don't have to do it, so they don't. And I get that, but it's a shame, I think.
Well, I'll take the science to another level beyond what you're talking about with the equipment. The aim point mania that we see now today.
Yeah. Yeah. How did anybody ever make a putt?
It really drives me crazy when you see their backs to the hole and they're trying to feel the break and they walk another 5 feet and they do it again. They go through this process. Where's the feel in it? I know you're trying to win, you're trying to find a shot over the course of 4 days that could make the difference. But, to me, if you play a lot of golf and you're standing looking at a 20-footer, it's a cup outside on the left. It's the left edge. Play it a cup and a half. I mean, all this, is it really making a difference? Maybe it is. But I know one thing. I can't stand looking at it.
Yeah, if they think it is, it probably is, because it's all in the head. But still, I do wonder. And I tell you what, it also made me smile. I read a story about yourself recently, a really good story it talked about the golf hole that you've got or you're building, or maybe have built already in your backyard in Nashville. It's based on the 13th at Augusta, and it mentioned in there that you were using modified golf balls made by Titleist. Now, that made me laugh, because I've been at Titleist for years to make modified golf balls for everybody, but that's another story. But talk to me about I wanted to take a step back before we get to that with the broadcasting of the Masters. You said that golf's different from the other sports. Is broadcasting the Masters different from doing golf anywhere else?
Well, it feels so big, so grand, so special. I don't know. You just get lulled into this wonderful, like, bubble, coma, whatever you want to call it. That week is just a blur for me. I don't try to approach it any differently. We have fewer commercial breaks, as you know, but the sound, the look, it's cinematic, the way our incredible production team puts it together and directs and produces it for the world feed. The music, the Augusta melody, all of these things kind of come together. It goes into a pot where you just kind of, you're just trying to make sure you fit in, and it just when you do talk, you're lending something that's pertinent for that moment. I think you do scale down a little bit on your commentary, but I just absolutely love that tournament like nothing else. I've had it now 39 years in my life. I hope to be able to go a little beyond 50, God willing. There's nothing that means more to me professionally than broadcasting the Masters tournament. You were talking about this hole in my backyard. You've been seeing me shuttling through my picture file. I built hopefully this will work. I built a scoreboard.
The scoreboard. Yeah.
You see it? It says hello friends on the top of it.
Yeah.
And it has my 3 children tied for the lead. in chronological order. My Caroline, my Finley, my Jameson, they're all approaching Amen Corner at 4 under par. And Freddie and Tiger, Jack, Arnie, and Gary are all just one back. I mean, it's setting up as an epic finish in my backyard. Hey, you got to be able to dream a little bit. I mentioned that Augusta Melody. I have that playing on a loop, when I activate it, with 9 speakers in my backyard. Yeah, maybe I get a little carried away, but it's my little ode to the place that is heaven on earth for me.
Yeah, I can forgive you that. I mean, and not to pick on the Masters, because the language that you guys use at patrons being the most obvious example, but on the bigger picture, how do you feel about the modern language of golf that's been the USGA and the R&A have tried to introduce, like hole locations and penalty areas, and holes are now tied in match play rather than halved. I rebel against that. I just wonder how you feel about it.
I still struggle with somebody hits it in the water and they're in the penalty area.
And it's not necessarily a penalty either. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not letter perfect on that and what they're trying to do from the USGA with that. I try to be really spot on with groupings instead of pairings. I've always tried to be a little bit better than what oftentimes comes out. I hear sometimes, well, that group's going off at 2:00. Well, that group consists of 2 players. It's not a twosome. Yeah. It's a pairing. Yeah. I've always been wise to that, but other than that, I don't really give it a lot of thought. I really don't.
I need to ask you, as I do on all these podcasts, it's the subject that's biggest in pro golf, certainly at the moment. The live golf,
the FedEx Cup.
The Curtis Cup. I was thinking of the Curtis Cup actually, but I was at the Curtis Cup at the weekend, and it was far more exciting than the FedEx Cup or the Tour Championship, I would argue. But anyway, that's a side issue. I just wondered where you are with this. I mean, are you like the rest of us and thinking, for goodness sake, just get this done one way or the other? And where, basically that's the question. Where do you stand in all this? What would be your hope for the end result?
Well, I hear a lot of people saying, come on, guys, figure it out, settle, merge, whatever. One thing I think has come out of all of this is that golf is a transient sport. And there are so many great talents out there that, we're recognizing, finding and developing and seeing new players that I'm kind of interested in hearing a little bit about. Some are a little maybe under the radar for you folks in the UK. We have a kid over here. He made the cut in the Open Championship named Davis Thompson. Got a beautiful game. Won an event this summer. I think he was T9 at the US Open. The backfilling of the players on the PGA Tour. I don't know what the anxiousness is why everybody all of a sudden just is like throwing up their arms. We gotta settle this thing. We'll see. I'm not involved in that. Obviously, I know a lot of players on both sides of this. Close friends in Live that are part of Live. Really close friends that were loyal to the PGA Tour. I got a lot of heat. It was interesting. I didn't mean anything by it, but the Masters this year, Scotty was walking off the 15th green, just made 2-putt birdie. They flashed up the leaderboard on screen, and I made some comment that you'll look at the leaderboard, and the first 5 players on the leaderboard all play the PGA Tour. Now let's go to 17. I wasn't trying to take a shot. You would have thought I was trying to defame somebody or Live or whatever. I just stated as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
it was a fact. Just as I pointed out when Bryson competed and nearly won the PGA, that he was representing the Live Tour the best that week and nearly pulled it off. Xander nipped him at the wire at the 72nd hole. But there are a lot of really sensitive, tender feelings on this. Interesting year, though. The players that went to Live, I don't know what's the cause of it, but if you take a look at the 4 majors this year, again, I'm just going to stay on the facts here.
Mhm.
Not one player in the top five. And then at the PGA, two players in the top 25. Bryson was second. Burmester was
Yeah.
12th. Koepka was 26, so that doesn't fit in the top 25.
Yeah.
And then, of course, U.S. Open, Bryson won. The next highest finisher from Liv was Sergio at Pinehurst, finished 12th. And then at the Open, you can fact check me on this, but I think Rahm might have been the low Liv player there. He finished tied for 7th. So what's happened here? What's happened to all these games? It was just, is it too small of a sample size to make anything of it? Or could someone make the case? I'm not trying to make the case here, but are they going to live in their games are not only not stable like they were before coming in and getting these huge windfalls? Are they getting worse? Who has gotten better as a player going there? Well, I think you can build a case for Bryson.
Yeah,
After that, tell me.
Yeah,
has it made Rahm better? Has it made Koepka better? Has it made Dustin Johnson better? I'm just asking theoretically here off of, again, very small sample size. I saw Brandel Chambly wrote a very good piece on this. It's interesting. Where does the leverage sit in this thing now? Is it on one side or the other? I don't know. But I know there's unrest still in the public's mind. Like, we got to get this thing settled. Well, what are you wanting to settle for? What is it you want to settle? How do you see it coming pieced back together? You want team golf on the PGA Tour? Because I don't think that's ever going to happen. Maybe there's an event or two in the fall. Do you want people to be able to come back in without paying a penalty when they knew the consequences, that if they left, that they were giving up the chance to be able to play in X, Y, and Z, and they were going to lose their membership? Did they know that up front before they made that leap? So, you have to, and I think this is part of the reason why this thing has taken so long for it to get anywhere. And I'm not privy.
I tell you, Jim, there's a growing feeling over here that for the European tour and maybe for the Asian tour that I visited recently as well, that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them if this whole thing just fell apart and the PGA Tour went off and did their PGA Tour thing and something else evolved that was everywhere else in the world except America. And you'd have two, big beasts competing, if you like, in golf. I'm not sure that's the best thing for golf, but I can see that happening because the longer it takes for these talks to go on, the less likely it seems to me that there's going to be enough compromise on all sides to make it work.
Well, I think the PGA Tour, and now people can throw back at you, well, TV ratings are down. We had a stretch over the summer where we had 5 straight weeks, I believe, where the ratings actually were up. I know overall we had more weeks. Again, we're talking fractions. We're not talking about an event going from a 5 rating to a 2 rating. It's a 1.8 last year to 1.7 this year, whatever. It's fractions, but I guess you could say down is down, but it's not, off the cliff. But your suggestion is, I guess you're saying, if Liv falls apart, is that what you're saying?
No, if the talks fall apart,
Oh, the talks fall apart. Yeah.
Well,
It's going to, here's one interesting thought. A lot of these players that went to Liv were signed to contracts, obviously, that had a certain term to them. 3 years, 4 years, I understand. Most of them were 3 to 4 years. They weren't lifetime contracts. What do you do? Because there have already been 3 played seasons, or it's still in the back end of the third season. What do you do when those contracts come up? If there's no settlement, are you going to
be guys? Yeah, Westwood, Poulter, Stenson, the older guys that haven't been particularly outstanding on the Live Tour, that they might get dropped. Depends how much money Liv are prepared to spend on newcomers, if you like. That's the X factor.
Well, it's been a reboot in some respects over here on the PGA Tour with signature events and other ways of funding and making more generous prize money for for players to earn. I mean, look at what Scotty Scheffler's year. I didn't mean to minimize a moment ago about the playoffs over here. There were Hideki won one week. Keegan Bradley had a thrilling win at beautiful Castle Pines, and then Scotty put the exclamation point on a gold medal year, a major championship year, and all and I think I read where it totaled up to $68 million in prize money, which is it's staggering.
But the only event where that made him cry, Jim, though, was the Olympics, and there was no money at all in that one. That speaks volumes.
It speaks volumes too about him.
Yeah,
what's in his heart. He's not out there playing for the $68 million. He's out there playing for legacy and history, which is what I like. To me, definitely. Legacy in golf, it means something. Call me old-fashioned, but I've been blessed to know a lot of these old-timers. Shoot, I guess I'm fit in that category now, but you mentioned earlier.
We both do, Jim. We both do, believe me.
Jack Nicklaus. I was with Jack at Castle Pines last week. They're going to be known forever as icons of the game. It has not one thing to do with how much money they made in their career. It's all about legacy. It's all about legacy. And, for me, no one's knocking at my door in regards to like what the players had to come to grips with. Do I stay? Do I go? Whatever. I'm going in my 40th year, as I mentioned. Legacy for me is everything. In my own little tiny bubble of broadcasting, it's important to me to know that I did X number of Masters, X number of Super Bowls. I was a good teammate. That's first, actually. I represented my network well. I represented the industry well. I had friends. But when it comes to just pure broadcasting, I got a chance to do the 32 Final Fours. I've got a 500th NFL broadcast coming up this season. I would like to get to 50 Masters. When down the road, I'm long gone. That's what's going to be meaningful, to the people that you meet. It's legacy, and that's not for sale. That's not for sale.
Yeah, that resonates. That resonates over here, where I come from in Scotland. The three gods, if you like, of golf from America: Bobby Jones. Let's just off the top of my head, Bobby Jones, Jack Nicklaus, and Tom Watson. And they're admired as much for the way that they lost as for the way that they won. It wasn't just about winning. It was the way they played that counted in the end. And that's basically what you're talking about. That's what resonates. So you should have been born Scottish, Jim. I'll keep telling you that.
I think I've got a little Scottish, truly, on my mother's side. I do. But my mother's maiden name was Trull, Trull. I'm Scottish. So maybe that's coming out.
Yeah, but that's I think I have to say though that we might be fighting a losing battle on many of these fronts. The way things are going, the emphasis on money rather than, as you put it,
I think there are enough.
Disturbs me a bit.
Well, there's always going to be. Everybody can't be the same. Not everybody looks at the world the same way. But I do believe there are people out there that do care about the things we just talked about. I really, truly do believe there are people that take your winning Ryder Cup captain, Luke Donald, legacy. He's about legacy. Scotty Scheffler, legacy. Jordan Spieth, legacy. So let's not say that it's getting away from us. I think there are people that are going to take the torch and they're running with it. And there are many others. I just rattled off three names that came to mind. And I can't broad brush it and say we're losing it. I think there's always going to be people that feel that connection to the past that you do, I do, many others. I
wanted to finish with one last question, Jim. I know you've got to get away, but Is there any regret or disappointment? I know you dabbled, you were on the BBC at the Open at least once that I can remember, and you were a big hit commentating in the different way that the BBC used to do the Open. Is that a slight regret of yours that you didn't get to do a bit more of that?
No, actually, it was one of the great thrills of my career that I got to participate at the Open. That was the one bucket list thing that I always had, was I wanted to be able to call the Open.
Mm.
There's nothing else that I long for in terms of broadcasting. I always wanted to do the Open. Truth is, in 2009, I was there as a fan at Turnberry, and I got asked to come on, kind of, we call it over here the pregame show, but before the full tournament coverage, I went on for a couple of segments on the Beeb. And then the next year was at St. Andrews, and I did it again. It did a little bit of commentary, maybe 30 minutes. The next year in 2011 at Royal St. George's, I did a lot in the booth.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, and I even got to, their style is so different than what we do over here, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. I just really enjoyed it, though. And they would pair you up, whether it was with Wayne Grady or Sam or Mark James or Peter Alice. And late in the day on Sunday at Royal St. George's, I was paired up with Peter, and that was big for me. That was such a thrill and an honor to be able to do the Open. It felt so different to me. I didn't know if I was doing it right, well, a good job, bad job. I didn't know, but I loved it. Then the BBC, a few years later, I still dabbled in some other years. Had some children late in life, bless my world, and that prevented me from traveling over for 2 of those years. But up until the BBC lost the coverage, I probably had some experiences there over the course of 4 or 5 years. That was the one bucket list thing I had. People say, what do you want to do? You want to do a World Series in baseball? No, I'm not qualified. I would love to do the Open one year. Yeah. So I got to do it. And now I'm at the point in my life where I long for nothing, but I'm grateful for everything. There's nothing I want. There's no one I'm envious of, or any broadcast that I feel like I should be reaching for. I'll be able to do it all, and I'm grateful for it all.
Well, I think that came across when you were on the BBC. I think people enjoyed it because it was clear that you were enjoying it. I think that came across.
It was so much fun. When I was at Turnberry, where it really first came about, I was just in the gallery walking around, listening to the BBC radio broadcasts, which is something we didn't really see the radio listeners following in the galleries over here on the American tour. And just loving the commentary, because you can't see everything when you're out there. And I was watching Tom Watson, that miracle run. And I was there as a fan. And I went over to the Open a number of times as a fan, going back to 2000. I was there at St. Andrews when Tiger completed the career Grand Slam. I was just blending in with the gallery, listening on the radio and watching golf at the home of golf. That was important to me, as somebody that cares so deeply about the game. And no regrets. I got to do that, and I'm really grateful that they thought enough to ask me to contribute a little bit.
Yeah. Peter Alice was wonderful, wasn't he?
He was. I wish, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now. My kids go to school here, but in the summer I have my home still in Pebble Beach. I left there yesterday, so summer is officially over. Right. On my desk, had we done this yesterday instead of today, I would have reached over, and the first book on my desk is the book about Peter Alice. I think it is. Yeah, it's there. He is on the cover, and I keep thinking there's another book I could put here on my desk, but I keep Peter in that position right there, right to my left, and floods the mind with a lot of good memories.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to go to his home, 3 or 4 times just to interview him, well, ostensibly to interview him. Basically, I asked him one question, and then I sat there for the next 3 hours and listened. But he was
you like no one else. Oh my gosh!
A magnificent storyteller. He really was.
Well, I mentioned 2011 sitting across from him. I was scared out of my mind. It scared me. I was, and he wouldn't be happy if I used the word intimidated, because he certainly wasn't trying to intimidate me. But here I was in his sphere, in his universe, and I'm looking right across at him. And the cadence of the broadcast was, every time you switch from one golfer to another, you hand it off. You don't throw it to anyone. Here we say, let's go back over to 15. Those old B broadcasts, it would be, here's Lee Westwood for birdie at the 12th hole. He's on some run right now, and he's picked up another one here at 12. And then Peter would say, I got Darren Clark here at 13. And it just pick it up naturally. And I'd wait to see Clark finish out, and then they would kind of tip you off that Stewart Sink's over at 11. And I would go, Stewart Sink. It is back and forth. But when it was his turn to go, and you really truly were sitting right across from one another, 4 feet across, I caught myself just like looking at him, watching him, and getting so lost in that a few times I kind of missed the fact there had been a shot change, and now it's my turn. I'm sitting across from Peter Allis.
I think he learned that same thing from Henry Longhurst going back. I think he taught Peter a lot about commentary. So.
I'm sure he did. And of course the legend of Henry Longhurst, something I'm very familiar with his days contributing on the 16th Tower at Augusta, which happened to be my first home at the Masters back in 86, 7, and 8. I did the 16th hole, broadcast 16th hole.
Yeah. Jim, I'm conscious that you have to get away and do other things. I've enjoyed, as ever, listening to your voice and your stories. I hope you've enjoyed this experience.
I've loved being with you. Okay, I'll see you on the range next year, man.
I'm
off. You can cut this out. You can leave it, but I'm off to do another batch of Titleist commercials. But you mentioned earlier in my backyard, I have these what did you call it? Low flight Titleist golf balls. They're not. Right. People might be looking for them. Titleist does not make those. Right. It's a golf ball that I use in the backyard. It's called Almost Golf. I don't have any relationship business. I'm a consumer. And they were first, I believe, invented by Dave Pelz, short game guy.
Right. Yeah.
So just want to set that record straight. But I get to live a lot of golf today when it's really an important football week for me. I get to look at you, talk to you, talk a little golf, the number one ball in golf, and do all of that. Yeah. And I'm back to football here before the kids come home.
Well, starting with me, it sounds like your day can only get better, Jim. That's all I can say.
This has been a great thing. I've been looking forward to it since I saw you in July. So thanks, Huggy, for having me. And I hope our paths cross soon. Then parenthetically, folks, the last time that I played golf with Huggy, I believe we were at Yale.
We were. You're right.
At Yale in New Haven, Connecticut. What a beautiful game. I will witness that day. I'm not talking about my own.
Yeah, well, those days are gone, I'm afraid, but it's another story. That's not true. Anyway, Jim, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate thank you. See you now. All best.
Wow, what a life he has led and continues to lead. If you're of a certain age, namely mine, the Masters without Jim Nantz is unthinkable. And it was great to get a peek into the man behind the voice, behind some of the most iconic moments in golf's history. As always, big thanks to Huggy and Jim for taking the time to do it. Well, that's all for episode 128, but I hope you've made the effort to follow the pod on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode, including this on our next.
I never tried to be my dad when I was playing golf.
That's Javier Ballesteros, son of the great Seve, next time on The Thing About Golf.